This is a quick tutorial to show you how to make a plastic in Blender using the parts library and based on a workflow that was suggested by Niwak. Let's bring our plastic scan into Photoshop. Here it is. When we use this in Blender, when we're making the plastics for the table, we're going to want to have this white part and the clear plastic part of the image removed. So let's do that. And I like to do that non-destructively. To do that, you add a layer mask, clicking this button. That creates a little area here, which is our mask. If I alt-click on that, now we're seeing the mask itself. And as a demo, I'm just going to color part of this mask black. Then if I shift-click back to our other image, you can see that where I colored the mask black, that's now transparent on the resulting image. So if I alt-click back into our layer mask and then I alt-click again, now we see the resulting masked image, but I have the ability to edit the mask itself from this view. So I can color the mask white again and it brings the image back. So using this technique and in this mode, I'm going to use the lasso selection tool. Actually, I'm going to select all right now, so I have the whole image selected. And with the lasso selection tool, I'll zoom in and I will remove parts of that selection. You can do that by clicking the Alt key, and you see a little minus sign next to the lasso tool. Now, once I start selecting, I can remove my finger from the Alt key, and I'm just going to trace around the edges of the artwork that I want to keep. Okay, so now I have unselected the artwork that I want to keep because eventually I'm going to want to color the selected parts black, and that will erase them. So let's reselect the holes. So if I can add selection back in by pressing the Shift key, and that makes a little plus sign next to the lasso tool. Start selecting, and I can remove my finger from the Shift key. So when we color this part in black, it'll become transparent. I like to cut out the screw holes from the plastics because that's going to allow me to later on in Blender align and scale the image to the model. Okay, here we go. So let's erase around the edges of this plastic. There we go. Now I realized while I was selecting the artwork that there's a little line around the edges of that artwork that I might want to keep. So I'm going to shift click on the layer mask, and that X's out the layer mask. So you can see it kind of suppresses the effect of the mask, so you can see the full image again. There's this line around the edges of the artwork, which I believe is intentional, so I want to keep it. I think I'm going to use the magic wand tool to select the line parts. So I'll do that real quick. Okay, so I'm going to shift click the mask again so I can see what I'm doing. Go back and I will color in that new selection white on the mask, and you can see it brings back the line. All right, I'm going to do that for the rest of them. Then I'll save this as a PNG, keeping the transparency, and we'll use it in Blender in a bit. All right, the first thing we need to do is import our plastics image into Blender, and you can do that by going to import images as planes, but in order to get that option, you have to enable it through the preferences, add-ons, search for image, and then you'll see import export images as planes and just check that box. So we're gonna import images as planes. And plastics 1, I just leave everything default. It created a plane for us. Let's move it off to the side, and we're going to want to scale it down a little bit so it's manageable. Okay, showing the texture. And yeah, this is the image that we modified in Photoshop so we can see through it. So I'm going to move this over to our playfield. Let's move it up a little bit. Okay, I think, yeah, so the bottom the bottom one here is the right slingshot plastic. So let's work on that one. So I'm going to use the holes in the image to align and scale the whole plane. The nice thing about doing it with multiple plastics is that you scale one and the other plastics are automatically scaled correctly. Okay, I hope that's correct. Let's move this over. Okay, this next step is pretty important. So once we've scaled things the way we like, let's do Control A and apply the scale. That's important so that later on when we apply modifiers, the plastics are the correct thickness. So now, in order to actually cut the plastic part out, what I want to do is come down here to our material node for the plastics image. And I'm going to change this to the scan. But first I need to import the scanned image, and the only way, well, a quick way to do that is just to import it as a plane, and then it kind of packs the image into the Blender file. That's probably a better way. That's our scanned image. I'm going to delete that plane now because I just did that to get the image. Going back into here. Now we can pull in the scan. Okay. Let's go into edit mode. And then with the knife tool, K, trace around the perimeter of the plastic. Okay. Now in face select, just select this new face that we made and Shift D to duplicate, bring it over here, and P to separate the selection. So now back into object mode. We've got these two objects. Then we got the new one that we just cut out. And that's the one we'll use moving forward. We can cut the other plastics from this plane later. On the left here, I have the parts library open. If you need to know how to install that, I have a link to my other video on how to install that in the description. But if we go into here, find the plastic with decal object and drag it in. We're going to use this as, because it has all the correct materials already applied to it, so we can just use that and apply it to our new plastic. To do that, first click on the new plastic, then shift and click on the parts library plastic. Do Control L and copy modifiers. So we can see over here that we now have all these nice modifiers which do a lot of the work to make the plastic look correct. Clicking on this plastic though, the new one, going to materials, we still have the original material that was created when we imported the image to a plane. But we're going to need to use the materials from our reference plastic from the parts library. So again, click and then shift click, Control L. Let's link materials. So now we're linked, we have the correct plastic material applied to our object, and we have this material which defines the decal. Now this is the decal from the part that we pulled in from the library, but that has a different image on it. So we want to actually bring our correct plastics image onto our part. So we want to make a single user version of this material. I'm going to click on this number here, and it makes a single user copy. So now we have a new copy of that material that we can modify, and it just applies to our new plastic. I'm going to go in to the image selection for the decal material, and let's pick, what do we call it? Plastic 1. I think that's all there is to it. So let's see what this looks like. Oh, there it is. And if we ever need to rescale it, that's fine. Just be sure you always apply the scale afterwards. And I think it should be good to go. I hope that helps you guys, and have fun.